What is true fear? It is not a ghost in a graveyard. It is not a monster from a story. True fear is being locked in your own room, in your own home, knowing that the monster trying to kill you is your own family. The story you are about to hear is not about strangers. It is a tale of domestic terror, of pure calculated greed, and of one of the darkest, most bizarre conspiracies Sherlock Holmes ever faced. This is the story of the thing that whispered in the night. This is the story of the Speckled Band. Our story begins, as all the best ones do, on a cold morning at 221 B Baker Street. A young woman arrives, dressed in black, shaking, her face hidden by a veil. She is not just worried, she is in mortal terror. Her name is Helen Stoner. The story she tells is one of pure Gothic horror. Helen lives in a decaying ancient mansion called Stoke Moran, the last piece of a once wealthy aristocratic line. She does not live there alone. She lives with her stepfather, Dr. Grimesby Roylott. Dr. Roylott is not our hero. He is our antagonist. He is the last descendant of an arrogant, violent family, a massive man of terrible strength and uncontrollable rage. He had worked as a doctor in India, but was forced to return to England after beating his own butler to death in a fit of fury. Now, he is a ruined, bitter man. The only things he loves are the wild animals he brought back from India, a cheetah and a baboon, which he allows to roam freely on the mansion grounds. Everyone in the village is terrified of him. Helen and her twin sister Julia were left in this man's care when their mother died. Their mother, a wealthy woman, had left her entire fortune to Dr. Roylott, but with one crucial stipulation: an annual large sum of that inheritance must be paid to each of the daughters if they got married. This was the clause Dr. Roylott hated. This was the motive. If the girls married, their money would be gone, and he would be left penniless. 2 years ago, the tragedy began. Helen's twin sister, Julia, became engaged to be married. 2 weeks before her wedding, Julia went to Helen's room, terrified. She complained that for the last few nights, in the dead of silence, she had heard a sound, a low, clear whistle. That very night, Helen was awakened by a horrifying, violent scream from her sister's locked bedroom. She ran to the door. It was locked from the inside. As she arrived, the door swung open, and Julia stumbled out into the hallway. Her face was a mask of pure terror. She swayed, pointed one finger toward the doctor's room, and shrieked her final, mysterious words. "Oh my God, Helen! It was the band, the Speckled Band." And then she collapsed and died. The police found nothing. The room was locked. There was no poison, no injury. The whistle was a mystery. The death was recorded as a sudden fright. Before we continue this impossible mystery, if you love the darkest cases of Sherlock Holmes and stories of justice, subscribe right now to the Storyteller's Ledger. Now we return to the present. Helen Stoner, in Baker Street, weeping as she tells this story. 2 years have passed, and now Helen is engaged to be married. And just last night, her cruel stepfather, Dr. Roylott, citing repairs, ordered Helen to move out of her own bedroom and to move into the exact same room, the very deathbed where her sister Julia had died 2 years prior. Helen, terrified, locked the door and lay awake. And in the dead of night, in the total silence, she heard it, the same low, clear, metallic whistle her sister had described. She did not wait for morning. She fled the house in terror, caught the first train to London, and ran directly to the only man in the world who could save her, Sherlock Holmes. Holmes knows the clock is ticking. This is not a puzzle. It is a race. He knows that Helen will be murdered, just like her sister, the moment she returns, unless he can solve the mystery of the Speckled Band. But just as Holmes and Watson agree to take the case, the door to 221B bursts open. Dr. Grimesby Roylott himself storms into the room. He is a giant, terrifying figure. This is the moment of contempt. He screams at Holmes, forbidding him from interfering with his family affairs. He calls Helen a hysterical fool. To prove his dominance, to show his physical power, Roylott grabs the iron fireplace poker. He bends the solid steel bar into a curve with his bare hands. He throws the ruined metal at Holmes's feet and storms out. Holmes just laughs. He observes that a man who can bend steel is also a man who has too much to hide. The motive is clear: the money. If Helen marries, Roylott is ruined. He killed the first sister, and now he will kill the second. Holmes and Watson travel immediately to the cursed mansion, Stoke Moran. Roylott is supposedly in London, giving them a few hours to investigate the crime scene. Holmes is not looking at the house. He is looking at the details. The first clue, the repairs to Helen's real bedroom, are a lie. Nothing is broken. This confirms the conspiracy. Roylott needed her in that specific death room. They move to the room where Julia died and where Helen is supposed to sleep tonight. It is a locked room. The windows are sealed. The door is solid. How did the killer get in? Holmes inspects the room. He finds the clues. Clue 1. The bed. It is bolted to the floor. It cannot be moved. This is strange. Clue 2. A fake bell pull. A velvet rope hangs by the bed, supposedly to call a servant. Holmes examines it. It's new, and it is not connected to any bell. It is a fake rope. Clue 3. A small ventilator, an air vent, near the ceiling. But this vent doesn't lead outside. It leads directly into the next room. And whose room is next door? Dr. Roylott's. Holmes and Watson immediately inspect the doctor's room. Clue 4. A massive iron safe, the kind you lock valuables in, or other things. Holmes asks Helen what is inside. She says, only business papers. Clue 5. A small saucer filled with fresh milk. Holmes points. Why milk? There is no cat in the house. Clue 6. A small dog leash, curled up, tied into a little loop. The puzzle is clicking into place. Holmes has the motive. Money. He has the means. The vent. The fake rope. And he has the clues. A safe, milk for a small creature, a leash to retrieve it. He just needs to prove it. Holmes tells Helen the plan. She must lock herself in her original bedroom tonight, pretending to have a headache. He and Watson will spend the entire night sitting in the dark, in the death room, waiting to see what comes through that vent. This is the vigil. This is the climax. Night falls. Holmes and Watson sit in absolute, pitch-black darkness. The silence of the ancient, decaying mansion is total. Hours pass. Midnight. Suddenly, they hear it. From the doctor's room, a faint sound of movement. And then the sound Helen described. A low, clear, whistling sound. Holmes stares at the ventilator. A moment later, a faint scraping sound. Something is coming. Holmes strikes a match. The sudden light fills the room, and he sees it. He shouts. Slithering down the fake bell-pull rope, heading straight for the bed that was bolted to the floor, is the Speckled Band. It is not a band. It is a snake. A beautiful, terrifying, deadly snake. Holmes grabs his cane. He begins beating the snake frantically, furiously. He is not just trying to kill it. He is trying to drive it back. He beats the snake. It retreats, hissing, back up the rope, back through the ventilator. There is a moment of silence. And then, from the next room, from Dr. Roylott's room, comes the most horrific, agonizing shriek of death Holmes has ever heard. They race into the hallway. They burst into the doctor's room, and there he is, Dr. Roylott, dead in his chair. A look of absolute agony frozen on his face, and coiled around his head, like a grotesque living crown, is the Speckled Band. It is a swamp adder, the deadliest snake in India. The mystery is solved. Holmes explains the perfect crime. Roylott, the brute, was also brilliant. He had a motive, the inheritance. He had the weapon, the snake, which leaves no trace, mistaken for a fright. He used the vent to send the snake into the locked room. He used the whistle to call it back. The milk was its reward. He trained it to slither down the rope onto the bed, which was bolted so the victim couldn't escape the snake's path. He killed the first sister, Julia, this way, and he intended to kill Helen the same way. But tonight, when Holmes struck the snake with his cane, the enraged, confused animal retreated back through the vent, and it attacked the first person it saw. It attacked its own master. Dr. Roylott, in his arrogance, became the victim of his own impossibly clever, cruel design. This is the ultimate analysis of the case. This is not just a murder mystery. It is a story of absolute family betrayal and cold-blooded greed. Dr. Roylott, a man of science and aristocracy, descended into a monster because of his contempt for his stepdaughters and his desperation for money. But this is also a story of perfect karma. The weapon of his arrogance, the exotic, deadly creature he alone could control, was the very thing that delivered justice. He died from the same speckled band that killed Julia. Holmes, in the end, admits that he is not even sorry for this death. He is not guilty about sending that snake back to kill its master. This story reminds us that the greatest threats, the darkest secrets, often come from within our own walls, from the people who are supposed to protect us. And it reminds us that every tyrant, no matter how clever, eventually makes one fatal mistake.